Let me get that going. Let me change my background.
Thank you.
Okay, so one of the biggest problems that we're dealing with right now is what in the market? Any guesses?
Enough listings.
Yeah, lack of inventory, right? How many people are representing buyers right now? Few? Is it a struggle out there? Are you having a hard time finding houses for those people, right?
Yeah, and what you do is got multiple offers.
Yeah, or you're finding properties and you're not getting them because you're getting outbid by other buyers, right? So so here's the thing. There's only one solution to this issue, right? Anybody know what it is?
More listings.
What? I think Ninka said it.
Get more listings.
Yeah, find more listings. It's to find inventory. The only way to solve an inventory issue is by finding or creating more inventory. So what we're going to talk a little bit about today is where do you find that inventory and how do you find it, right? So we're going to talk through that a little bit. So I just put together a list. All right. So let's find some off-market properties. So what do we do? What do successful agents do every single day? What's the number one thing that you need to do to grow your business?
Lead generate.
Lead generate, right, for buyers and sellers. Second thing that you need to do is to make seller and buyer listing presentations. Seller listing presentations and get listings. Third is to make buyer presentations and get listings. And then the fourth thing that you need to do to grow your business is to actually go out and preview real estate, go out and see real estate, right? Everything else that we spend our days doing is about running our business. And you know what the first thing on there is lead generating, right? So that's what we're going to focus on today is how are we going to lead generate for more listings to solve our listing inventory issues. So anybody have any ideas of what we're really looking to find? Like we're not just looking to find sellers right now, right? What's the key like adjective that we need to add to what I just said? We don't just need sellers. We need what kind of sellers?
Motivated.
Motivated sellers. Thank you, Lori Egan, right? So when I was an investor, well, I still am an investor, but when I was investing full time before I took this role, I like to say that there's 5 Ds of motivated sellers, all right? And this is how I remember them, the 5 Ds. Anybody have any ideas of what some of them are? What are some of the reasons why a seller might be motivated?
Desperate.
They're desperate. Okay. I like to call that distressed. I think it's a little bit nicer of a word.
Divorce.
Desperate. Divorce, right? What else? You guys just want me to give you the answers? Is that easier? Is that a more fun game for you guys to play? All right. We'll just give you the answers then, right? 5 Ds of motivated sellers. Distress, right? So it could be financial distress. It could be emotional distress. It could just be distressed property. Like the property itself is just not, up to snuff, and somebody needs to sell it in order to take their cash out and go get something else, right? People downsizing, right? People sell the big home in order to, their kids have moved out and they want a smaller home, or they want to move from the town with the good schools, and they want to move up to the lake, or they want to move down in the water, or they want to move down south, right? Divorce, another one, right? Dependency, meaning, this is like dependency is essentially when people get too old and they can't take care of themselves. They need to sell their home in order to move to like an assisted living facility, or to move in with a family member, something along those lines. And then obviously the last and final D, right, which is the last and final reason why somebody might need to sell their house, death. Right? These are all things that create motivation in sellers. If somebody isn't really feeling any of these for whatever reason, the key to all of this, to finding motivated sellers, is to find the motivation. And by breaking it down this way into these 5 categories, we can kind of figure out like different strategies in order to find those sellers, right? Like, so if I wanted to find distressed properties, like what are some of the ways I could find distressed properties? Come on, people, you got to help me out
Driving
here.
for dollars.
Yeah, driving around and just finding properties that look like crap, or that don't have the grass mowed, or in the winter aren't plowed, or have a tree on top of the roof, like one I saw in Wilton once, right? What else? What other ways could we find properties that are distressed?
I think it's a judicial website where people.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Right? If people are going through financial distress, like they most likely have a lis pendens, or you know, some sort of like foreclosure or judgment or legal action against them right now, right? So we can find properties that way. We could also find divorce the same way, right? Through judicial websites, or through like just forming and creating relationships with divorce attorneys. Right? Deaths the same way. We can find those properties the exact same way, right? So if we're gonna if we want to go out and actively find these properties, we need to know what kind of properties we're looking for first, right? And then we can kind of form a strategy around it. Now, if we're not going to go out, if we want to take kind of the opposite approach, instead of like, you know, so you might want to focus on the type of property if you're working like with an investor or something like that, right? Who only wants those distressed properties. However, if you just want to find listings specifically, well, here are some of the top lead sources, and you guys have all seen these before, right? Who has not seen a list like this? Right? What is the number one source for of leads for listings? Yeah, it's the same number one source for any kind of business, right? Your database. So if you're specifically looking for listings out of your database, what are some of the things that you could be doing? I'm sorry? Jennifer, I couldn't hear you before.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even know. I thought I was on mute.
No worries.
Calling them and asking for business.
Yes, right? Like, how are we communicating to our databases already, right? We're talking to them on the phone. We're sending them text messages. We're sending them emails. If we had to suddenly do that on a mass scale, what could we do? Right? Could it be worthwhile to send out a mass email or mass text message or letters or note cards or some sort of professional postcard or letter to your entire database saying inventory is at a historic low right now. I have buyers that can't find properties. Do you know anyone who can help? Right? Or that I can help? Do you know anybody that's thinking about selling their home right now? Right? Expired listings, the second best source, right? Are you farming expired listings on a regular basis? Do you have a system for it? You know, or are you trying to cherry pick expired listings? You know, I mean, if you're not doing expired listings on a massive scale, are you at least focusing on them to try and cherry pick listings that you know you have people that you know you would have people interested in? Right? For sale by owners the same way. Do you have a list of people of properties that you've seen with a for sale sign out front? Or do you just kind of drive by them and take a note and maybe write their number down and then lose the piece of paper? How many people have actually gone door knocking? Anybody?
I have done it in the past.
Are there areas where you could go door knocking? around here. It's not ideal in all neighborhoods, but are there neighborhoods and areas that you could potentially go door knocking? Yes, there are, right? And my guess is those neighborhoods are actually some of them, some desirable neighborhoods too, right? With demographics leaning towards people wanting to live in like walkable areas, close to town, close to transportation, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the types of areas. If people are looking for walkable areas, like in, you know, Main Street, Ridgefield area, or in Bethel, or down in Norwalk, like in the East Norwalk or the South Norwalk areas, right? Or Rowayton. Could you door knock any of those neighborhoods? Absolutely. Could you door knock some of the neighborhoods up in Candlewood? Absolutely. Condo complexes? Absolutely. Right? And then there's just the old school geographic farming and direct mail. Nice, Tama, right? Large condo complexes. It's a great opportunity for door knocking. All right. Are you guys noticing any trends or anything consistent amongst what we're talking about here today?
Takes talking to people.
Yeah, well, it's talking to people, right? And what does it require? What does finding motivated sellers require?
Conversation.
Conversation. In a market like this right now, what it requires is massive action. Our business in general requires action, right? Business just doesn't fall into your lap. Like, you have to go find it. When we're in a market like right now, when listing inventory is low, it requires massive action. Here's the thing. Some agents are going to take massive action. There are agents right now who are busier than they've been in years. And it's because they're taking action. There are agents who are just not. And they're getting those same results, right? So the question we really need to ask is, how can we take massive action on some of these lead sources? What are some of the things that we can do to take massive action? And that's kind of where I wanted to spend the bulk of our time. Now that we've kind of walked through some of the areas of motivation, walked through some of what, like, the lead sources, let's have a conversation around how we can take massive action around finding these sellers, right? Around actually reaching these people and driving the leads. All right. So let's talk about database. I threw out a couple before, but what are some of the things that you're all doing or that you've done in the past that maybe you haven't done in a while to create some momentum there? And if you could turn on your video, if you have video availability, that would be awesome, because it's a lot nicer to talk to people's faces than a random name. All right, so what are some of the things we can do to reach out to our database, reach out to our sphere of influence? I already named a few of them.
So I'm going to be starting next week. I'm starting my weekly email newsletter. So it's going to go the same day every week, I think on Wednesdays. And it's just going to be that consistent email every Wednesday with like a market update, a featured property, stuff like that.
Yeah. Now, are you going to tailor that to the market of the moment right now, where with the low inventory and everything else, right?
Yeah, I should
we always
definitely
need to kind of craft our message.
Yeah, agreed.
Right. But yeah, I love it. Like, most people are doing a monthly email. Let's do a weekly email, right? Let's get something out to people weekly and try to drive as much, attract as many people as possible, right? What else? How else can we take massive action with our database?
You can send them like a quick CMA.
Okay, yeah, right. Could you send everybody in your database a CMA? Like just start working down the list, right? You know what? I don't know who these buyers are going to be. I'm going to figure out, I'm going to do a 5-minute CMA on as many properties as I can and just start sending those out to people, right? What else? What else can we do? I mean, should I just call Chris and like maybe him and I can have this conversation? Or does anybody else want to talk?
One of
Maybe
the
do it.
I was thinking about is just people in general, educating them on the market right now.
Yeah,
Just because they don't know that it's a hot market.
exactly. Right? I mean, what are people hearing and seeing on the news every day? It's certainly not about real estate.
Yeah.
I mean, real estate is not big news right now. There's too many there's too many other, to be perfectly honest, more important things happening in the world.
I'll jump in with some kind of Zoom event. I still think that people still like that personal touch and work it into conversation.
Okay. So what does that look like then, Dee? Like, what would that look like? A large Zoom event?
It could be a couple of different things. It could be a cocktail hour Zoom event. It could be, I love Kimberly's bingo thing, or it could be a bunch of different things. You know, people respond to different kinds of events. So maybe a couple of different things over the next 2 months.
Yeah. How many people have sorry, what were you saying?
Different people respond to different things, and
Yeah.
you know, not everybody's going to go to a cocktail hour, but they might do a game night. It's whatever, you know, different things.
So let me ask, we've been in lockdown, quarantine, whatever you want to call it now, since like March 15th, 17th, something like that, right? So we've had roughly, April, May, and now June, right? So 3 months. How many people have hosted a large like Zoom type gathering for their database since then, and had like, let's say 10 or 20 people at least on it in this group?
I have not, but I'm doing my networking, and right now
Okay.
I'm one of the busier people, I think. So, but
Listen,
doesn't mean I'm
yeah.
going to stop. Doesn't mean I'm going to stop at all. It means I'm going to keep going.
Exactly. Right?
Yep.
You can call your cocktail hour shots for sellers.
I like that. Why not? We could do it together, Chris. Come on. Do it.
No hard liquor for me.
Right. So yeah, like putting together kind of like more social oriented things, but the key is obviously doing them, right? So I just asked, roughly, I don't know, 16, 17 people on this call. How many people have done a large Zoom event in the past 3 months with everything going on? And not a single person answered yes. Right? What does it take to put something like that on? Sending out a few email blasts, sending out a few text message blasts, sending out, what does it take to really organize something like that? Not a lot. And yet nobody on this call has done it.
Tama has. She just answered on the chat.
Okay. Yeah, your guitar nights on Tuesdays. Exactly. Although, Tama, are you technically hosting those, or is that something that you were doing beforehand? Exactly. Right. So what else? How else can we reach out to our database? I mean, I think this is one area where we don't have to overcomplicate it, right? Like, how many people have the ability to send out an email to 100 people? if they wanted to. How many people, let me ask you, I'll ask it a different way. How many people use Gmail for their mail? How many people use Outlook for their mail? Right? If you're using a Yahoo, a Hotmail, a Gmail, a whatever, any of the others, Outlook, right? You can literally just put a cursor on the to field and start and hit the word A, and like 10 people pop up. And you can, and then B, and then 10 people pop up, right? You don't have to get fancy with it and have some sort of fancy organized database to send things to, right? Literally just invite as many people to it as possible. You don't know who's going to respond, or just send information out. I think, as opposed to overthinking these things, like Chris, like you've been working with BombBomb, right? And you've been working now for a few months on putting together that newsletter, what it's going to look like, who's going to get it, what the videos, what the content's going to be like. And you've been putting all of these pieces together, right? And yet at the same time, if you wanted to send out a mass email to everybody, how long would it take you to really, if you really had to do it right now, how long could it take for you to do that?
Very fast.
Yeah, like 5-10 minutes, maybe, right? Because your database is organized. But even if you didn't have an organized database, you could probably send out an email in 20 to 30 minutes to at least 100 people.
Mhm.
Why aren't we doing that?
That's the question.
I think it is the question.
Well, afraid. I'll answer.
Okay.
So why I'm not doing it is because I had a past life that I still kind of dabble in, and I'm afraid of those people thinking that I'm not doing having too many hands in too many pots diminishes the thing. So a lot of people in my work database from my previous life, I don't touch on the real estate side. I just leave them on that other side. So when I dabble in that other business, I kind of, I don't know if I'm making sense.
Well, you are, and I get that, because I have the same thing, right?
Mhm.
Like I have groups of people that I don't really talk a ton about real estate to and things like that, right?
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, you must have some people that you do.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm not saying I don't have other people, but it's
Of course.
a lot of the database. I'm trying to be very cognizant of like who I'm touching on what. Like I don't even actually have real estate in my LinkedIn profile.
Well, I'm making a note here for you and I to talk later.
Okay.
All right, because we can talk more about that, right? Yes, thank you, Ian. Everyone has Facebook, right? You can send group Facebook messages to, and you can tag like up to 40 people in a post, right? What if you were to post something on Facebook and just tag 40 people in it? And then the next day or the next week, do the same thing all over again and tag a different 40 people.
Great ideas.
I love that, Ian.
Hello?
Thank you. Right? If you're connected with somebody on
Hello?
Facebook, are they
Oui, comment
more,
ça Ivana?
are they unlikely to respond or unfriend you? Like how likely are they to unfriend you if you said, "Hey, just wanted to send out a quick message to everybody saying that inventory is at a historic low. If you know anybody who could possibly be thinking about selling their home right now, it's the best time to do it that we've seen in over a decade. Please let me know if there's anything I can do to help." How many people do you think would unfriend you if you sent them that message?
Sent them the message or put it on your Facebook timeline?
Either. I mean, I say you get proactive, like Ian was saying, right? And just send messages to people through Facebook Messenger. Everybody who's on Facebook gets Messenger.
Yep. I would do it on LinkedIn also, by the way.
Yeah.
Create something and maybe even find an article that you can attach to it and validate what we're doing.
I mean, I think, yeah, you could absolutely could do that. And yet it's just, I know the more steps you add, the more likely it is somebody's not going to do it, right? Because now they're gonna, oh, I gotta go find something to send them. Well, don't send them anything. Just send them a message saying, hey, listen,
But
we're
on
looking for
LinkedIn, it adds
inventory.
validity, Dan. On LinkedIn, it adds to your
I get it.
credibility is what the word I want.
Yeah, I get
It's
it.
easy to find. And you can find even a graph, if you find some graph, and we have plenty of them
Hmm.
in Keller Williams, just to show the shift. Even. The shift is a great thing to show right now. And then say in the Northeast or something. There's so many things we could do. Doesn't take very long.
Yeah, I agree.
A lot of creative people on the call. I think it's a great idea. Both
I
are.
agree. I think it's great. Thank you, Ian. What else? How else can we reach out to the people that we know?
I'm hearing a lot of positive feedback on Facebook campaigns, which I have not done, but I actually was going to try and do that today.
Yeah, I mean, so now you're talking about just kind of like online lead sources in general, right? Because Facebook campaigns are great. I mean, don't get me wrong. And yet they're an online lead, and you never know what kind of lead you're going to get, and B, like how motivated of a lead you're actually going to get, right? Who was I just talking to this morning? Oh, it was Rudy on our call this morning, right? Who has his first closing from one of his command Facebook leads coming up next week. And he's saying that like he gets leads on there that are like, they're like not looking for 2 years. Like they're still like a year or two away for whatever reason. Right. And so the likelihood of finding somebody that way is a lot lower. And yet, if we look at this list, right, our top lead sources, there's, I listed 9 of them here in order of how likely you are to find sellers from them, as opposed to finding other types of deals like buyer deals, right? Because if you want to specifically focus on finding more listings, you need to go to where sellers are. If you're going to be running, Facebook ads, you'd have to obviously steer them towards sellers. But you don't necessarily know like what that motivation looks like either.
Yeah.
But it's a great, it'll cost you, and now you're also going to be talking about costing money as well. But without a doubt, the number one lead source for both buyers and sellers is going to be your database. So if you can't get comfortable talking to your database, whether it's a split database or whether it's, whatever your database looks like, it could be 10 people, it could be 10,000 people, whatever it looks like, you just got to find a way to communicate to them, right?
Yeah.
With them. What else? Anybody else have any ideas like Ian did? Again, how else can we take massive action? Things that are super simple to execute, that you can just do it on a massive scale.
What about that class that you did about direct mail? That was kind of interesting. Easy, quick, direct mail.
Yeah, listen, geographic farming, if you have what would that look like for this kind of market right now, right? How could we focus kind of the market on, like, how could we focus on a direct mail campaign that would yield results in today, like using today's market as an advantage, right? Again, it's the lack of inventory is a motivator for sellers, right? The fact that, so, what kind of data could we be talking about? We could talk about just the how much lower the listing inventory is, right? Down 64% or whatever the number is. I don't remember it. Listing inventory is down 64% year to date, right? Letting people know about that. Looking at list to sale price ratios, how much of those increased over the past, year or in today's market compared to 6 months ago.
Bidding. People love to hear that.
Yeah, multiple offers.
Yeah.
Right. When I asked before how many people have buyers that they're having a hard time finding properties for, how many, are we using those? the MREA says that listings are are a leverage opportunity because you can take that listing and turn it into multiple deals, right? You can turn it into at least a buyer, if not a buyer and a seller client with every listing. Like every listing should be at least at 1 to 2 additional transactions. So in a market like today, so can buyers. Right? If you have a buyer, are you taking your buyers and turning those into additional transactions? If you have a buyer that's looking in Ridgefield, or if you have a buyer that's looking in Brookfield, or if you have a buyer that's looking in Stamford or Norwalk or specific neighborhoods of each towns, are you focusing on those properties? Like, or those areas? Are you sending out letters or direct mail, right? I'm going to pull up something here for you all now.
Alexandra?
And so,
Yeah.
remember I told you I sent out like 180 letters last weekend or something to
Yeah.
a specific 55 and up complex.
Yeah.
And so
How
far,
many did you send?
I've received 180 letters,
Okay.
and I've received 2 calls so far.
Yeah.
One person, so I have a soon-to-be seller that really wants to be in this complex. So I marketed to this complex, and one person has a tenant currently in it and not sure what they're going to do, but they're not kicking them out. But as soon as they do decide to leave, they're selling. And a guy called me yesterday that he's not interested in selling, but he heard some people were interested in selling and was going to make that connection. So,
Nice.
Chris, you mailed these letters out?
yes.
Thank you.
180 of them. And
Was it
now,
a
what
letter
else
or a
could you
postcard?
email, right? Could
What
you
was
send it again?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Could you just do it all over again?
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
Like you sent them last week and maybe wait until next week and then send them again, right? Give people 2 weeks and say, hey, I'm still looking for a seller.
Yeah,
Right?
that's a great idea. I should actually just do that. You know, it's just a little bit of money and time, but someone's going to throw it out the first time or not open it or be like, hey, I got
Exactly.
2 pieces of mail. So
Yeah.
that's
Does anybody know the general conversion rates on direct mail? How many touches you need on average to drive up your rate of return or your response rate?
I want to say 12. I'm guessing, but I'm saying 12.
Not that high, actually. Anybody know?
I'm gonna
Nobody.
say 5. 5 or 6 it was, I
It's
thought.
5 to 7, actually. 5 to 7 touches. 5 to 7 touches will drive your response rate from less than 1%, which is about what you got, right? So you got 2 responses from 180, right? By sending 5 to 7, that response rate will typically jump to about 6 to 8%. Right? So now you, instead of sending out 200 postcards, you've now, and getting a 1 to 2 calls on those 200 letters. If you send out 1,200, right, you do it 6 times, let's say, right? So now or we'll say 5 times just to make the math easier for me to do in my head, right? Now you're talking about sending out 1,000 postcards, but getting a 6%, a 6 to 8% return on 1,000 postcards. So now you're talking about like 60 to 80 responses. Now, the responses might not all be positive,
Just top of mind.
but you're top of mind. You're doing that over a time period too, right? And you're building a database now, right? If you can get 60 people to respond out of 180 letters, that's huge.
Just for my own experience with a client that I'm listing now, a year and a half before she called me, I just, kept her in. I made phone calls. I kept her in with the monthly newsletter. And I was kind of like nurturing her all this time. And all of a sudden she called and said, okay, we're ready to sell. She called me. So
Yeah.
that was just proof positive.
Yeah. Listen, I loved Rudy's quote today on the call at 9:30, right? Success is not what?
Simultaneous.
It's not simultaneous. It's sequential. success comes to people who do things consistently over time, right? And take steps towards their goals. Success is not simultaneous, it's sequential. I love the fact that autocorrect changed Tama to Tamagotchis. And yeah, Tama, I love that name, that idea, right? Just run a contest for your database. Say, hey, I need more sellers right now. For anybody who sends me a referral, we'll get a $50 gift card. Anybody who sends me a seller referral will get a $100 gift card. Right? Because I'm sure, yeah, like you're getting more buyers now, which is it makes it harder and harder, right? All right, so Janine mentioned direct mail before in the class that I had taught before. One of the main reasons why a lot of people don't do direct mail is because they don't know how to target their databases, right? Or they don't know how to target like an area or a type of people. And I would say you have two really good strategies for that. The first is you can just go kind of wide, right? And do like property types or property areas. So a website that I use for cheap cheap mailing lists is called ListSource. And it's really simple to use. You create an account. If you call them up and create an account, you'll get a discount on your listing on the actual lists. So let's say I have a buyer that's looking at specifically Brookfield, let's say. I don't know, I just pulled that name out of my hat because it's early in this list. So let's say I have somebody who wants to be in Brookfield. So I'm going to come add Brookfield, and then I can come over here to property type and say, okay, property type. I only want single families. Okay, so there's 4,600 of those in Brookfield. I'm going to do last market sale price. Let's say my person's budget is up to like 500,000. So I'm going to do everything up to 500,000. All right, that'll weed it down a little bit. So it is Brookfield. So let's maybe go to 400,000. All right. There. So now I'm only going to be targeting the people in Brookfield. That's 3,500 people. Now that's a big list. And if I send out 5 to 7 mailers to these people, if I send out five mailers to these people, you know what I'm going to do to make it even better though? I'm going to limit this to people who haven't bought or sold in the past 5 years. Let's eliminate more people. All right, that goes to 1,600. So those are people that haven't sold or bought in the past 5 years. So now I have 1,600 people. And that's for the entire town of Brookfield. You can go even more specific. If you want specifically a 3-bedroom, you could go only 3 and 4 bedrooms. You can go, right? So there's all these different criteria. You want something with a living area of at least 1,500 feet. And maybe no more than 3,000. I don't know. What the hell?
Wasn't there somewhere on here that that you can filter against mortgage, like that the mortgage was paid off or 20 years, they had it for 20 years or something?
Yep. So mortgage. So you can do actually. You come in here, so you can do equity. So you can say, okay, I only want people that have at least 31% equity in the home.
Yeah.
Right. And you can see my number is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So the more specific you get, the more specific you get, the smaller your list gets, and the more you're able to target it. This is all public records data. It's a really simple and easy to use website. It's called listsource.com. Now, if you want to do something kind of more easily, so the way this works now is you have to then purchase this list, All right, and so for this list of 400 homes, it's going to cost me $91. All right, for 400 houses. Now it's also then on top of that going to cost roughly about 50 to 60 cents to actually mail to them, like to actually get things printed and mailed, like depending on what you use. If you use like a small postcard, it's probably something like 60 cents. If you're going to do like a letter, right, it's going to cost you probably closer to $1. All right, so all in, you could send out like one round of these letters, 500 to 400 people for roughly $500. Now, if you don't want to spend that much money, you could go buy the stamps yourself, come into the office, print the envelopes, print the letters, and stuff them and stamp them yourself, and that'll cost you probably closer to that 50, 60 cents a piece once you've even paying for the envelopes, right? Just paying for the envelopes and the stamps. And now you're spending closer to maybe $200, $300 for this mailer. All right, so this is going to cost a little bit of money to do something like this, right? The other option that you have is to use command. In the campaign section of command, we have the ability to do direct mail as well. And it's through a company called Real Mailers. And it's very simple and inexpensive. I want to attract listings. Now here's what you can select any listing here, because I'm just going to select this one just so I get the address for it. All right, but I'm not actually going to use the any of this information. All right, in the actual postcard, because you can change these things to be whatever you want, right? Your home could be next or whatever. I don't know, whatever. You can make these things whatever you want them to be. Okay, same thing with the list price, the description, all of this stuff. I'm not going to actually do any of these things. You can choose, it pulls on all of the photos. It's going to be a low resolution because it's pulling it from the MLS. All right. So what I'm going to do to just show you what the next phase looks like is just go back to one of my other direct mails that I have in here. And on step 2, once you've put in all of that actual information, you get to come in here and now target this listing. So this was, if you had somebody that was looking in Newtown and you wanted to go, around this specific listing or this specific neighborhood, you just put in an address of where you want to kind of center it. And now you can do kind of a radius targeting. And you can target by number of pieces, single family or multifamily, number of bedrooms, square footage, year built, last sold price. And then it's going to cost you roughly anywhere from 50 to 90 cents per piece, depending on the type of mailer that you want to do. You click next, you put in your credit card information, and they handle everything else. And you're done. So this is a really simple and easy way to target people if you have those buyers out there that are looking at specific neighborhoods or specific areas of specific towns, right?
So, Dan, who handles this? Like, what is this linked to? So like
It's
Staples?
linked to a company called Real Mailers.
Okay. And do you have to link that, or is that automatic? That's all
It's
done for
automatic.
you?
You don't have to do anything to set this up. The only thing you'll have to do at the end is put in your credit card information.
So that's for postcards or any kind of mailings.
It's postcards essentially, but you can create your own designs for them as well and upload your own designs if you want. And there's lots of print templates there are a lot of different print templates you can use in Command as well in designs. So flyers, large postcards, standard postcards, jumbo postcards. So you have all of these different templates in here, and you can just use these or tweak them however you want, you know, a flyer or a letter. And there's tons of different things in here. You might recognize some of these things because I've used them as templates for posters and things that we've had around the office. And the nice thing with these is they're organized into templates for what they're for, but you can use them for anything that you want. So you can just kind of go through. So there's a lot of for sale designs and templates in here, but you can kind of just look through all of these. So if you want to do a trifold letter, bifold letter, all right, you can come here and use any of these designs and then change them to be whatever you want. If you don't want it to be a for sale thing, you don't have to make it a for sale thing. You can change it to be a, you know, low inventory. Are you interested in selling? Like letter as well, right? All right, before we wrap up, I just want to kind of go back through. What other areas, so let me ask, what other areas or opportunities do we have to take massive action for finding or targeting some of these types of sellers or these lead sources? Any other ideas? Is there anything else that you guys are doing right now? Is anybody disappointed that I didn't have some sort of magic wand type of idea that we could, that you could just kind of wave and sellers would show up at your door? I know I am.
Come on, can't you just like blink like I Dream a Genie and send them to us?
Exactly. Right? Yeah, unfortunately, guys, there's no, and ladies, sorry, I keep saying that, guys and gals, right? Unfortunately, there really is no easy button for finding sellers. What there is, what we do have, and what we do know is that that sellers come from certain places. And sellers are motivated by certain things. What I can't give you, and I just gave you those, right? And I just gave you some of the strategies for how you can actually reach out to those people. What we can't do is do those things for you.
Well, it all boils down to it's simple, and it's whatever you put into it.
Yeah,
Like anything.
absolutely.
So I guess I need to get my button gear and get into it.
I love it. Now, what we can also do is incentivize you to do it, which I don't know how many of you saw Rick's email about an hour ago or an hour and change ago, right? But here's what we're doing. In order to try and incentivize all of you to focus on listings, since that's where the market is right now, we are going to be running an incentive from now until the end of July for any listing, for sale listing, for any for sale listing that you take between now and the end of July, we're going to give you a 10% bonus. or really, we're saying it's a 10% bonus. It's actually more than 10%, because we're going to give you a third of the company dollar that you would normally pay. So we're going to bump your split. If you're at a 70% split right now, you're going to go to 80%. All right, we're giving you a 10% bump. Now, here's the beauty. If you're capped right now, or if you cap at some point between now and when those listings close, you still get the 10%. So we're actually going to write a check to add to your commission. So you'll get paid 110%. So any listing that you take between now and the end of July, you'll get that extra 10% bump on when it closes, whenever that happens.
I have a question, Dan. This was not
Sure.
part of the FAQs that Rick had put out there. So I signed a listing, but it was a delayed listing. So we're not actually going live until either tonight or tomorrow.
Well, the way we're going to be tracking this is through the MLS. So
Okay. All right. So when
it's
it
going to
goes,
be based on the MLS dates. Okay.
so I'm good on that one.
All right.
Thank you.
Now there's one caveat to all of this, right? So nobody actually gets any of the bonuses unless we all kind of work together to achieve a goal, which is to take more listings than we did last year. All right. So we need to take 130 between Stanford and Ridgefield market centers. We need to take at least 135 listings between now and the end of the month, the end of July. We took 134 last year. So if we can take 135 this year, everybody who took every single one of those listings will be eligible for that 10% bump. Now, you only get to be eligible for that 10% bump if you're one of the people taking a listing. All right. What's 10% of a $10,000 commission?
$1,000.
It's literally $1,000 extra.
My son wants a dirt bike now, so
I'm not gonna lie. Like, I think this was like painful for Rick to approve, because he was looking at this and saying, "Oh my God, we're gonna give up 10% of commissions on 135 listings, at least." Right? Do the math. If our average commission is 400 grand, that's $135,000 of company dollar that we're giving back to all of you.
That'll go nicely towards the wedding I have to pay for.
Exactly. Right? But you only get to experience it if you actually go out and do it. And you actually go out and take those listings. So if you want to really focus on this, or if you're having any kind of issues with this, reach out to Steve, Carlos, or myself. All right? Or if you're part of productivity coaching, you can talk to Jen Henry about this. If you're not part of productivity coaching, you can talk to Jen Henry about this. All right? But, right now, the market of the moment, we've been talking about this for 3 months, right? When the market shifts, you have to focus on the market of the moment. Buyers are going to take you more time than they've ever taken you before, because you're going to be dealing with multiple offer situations. You might have to sell that buyer 3 or 4 or 5 homes before they actually close on one. Whereas if you take a seller, would you rather take a seller listing and have to sell it once with multiple offers?
Well, thanks, Dan,
Focus
for
on the
everything.
market of the moment. And the market of the moment right now is finding listings. All right. So we're all here to help. This is our big focus right now. So if you have any questions, if you want to sit down with me for a half hour, an hour, whatever it takes to really put together a strategy that we can go out and implement, I am always more than willing to take that time, as are Steve and Carlos and Rick and Debbie and all of us over here. Okay. Don't miss out on this opportunity. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend. The office will be closed tomorrow for Juneteenth. All right. So we'll see you all on Monday.
Sounds good.
care. Thanks.
All right, thanks,
Get the
everybody.
listings.